Okay, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're joining us from. Coach Kevin Sparks here, and let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want to share with you is we have a Facebook group that coincides with our meetup group. It has exactly the same name. I want to be really rich, and I do not apologize for it. The way to find us is to go into your own Facebook account, look where it says search Facebook, and type in the name of the group. I want to be really rich and I do not apologize for it. And you can find us that way. The other way you can find us is you can go to facebook.com/groups/ I want to be really rich. Now, the reasons you might want to be a part of the group, besides that we invited you to be part of it, if we have any special announcements, usually they're pinned to the top. But I think what you will find the most important to you guys is going to be whenever I remember to hit record, which is most of the time, when we have these Zoom meetings, we go ahead and get the recordings posted. We got a little bit behind a couple days ago, but now we are 100% caught up. And so we have everything from last week up here now. And you could just look for whatever days that you want if you happen to have missed any, or if you want to go through and do any of these over again, this is where you would go to find it. Okay. All right. The other thing I want to share with you is what we're in the process of studying right now. We're in the process of going through a book called Cybernetics. I'm actually gonna, let me see, what page are we on? We are on page 70. Okay. I'm going to go backwards for a moment, just so you can see how we found the book. So Cybernetics is a book that's been written a while ago. Maxwell Maltz has since passed. Extremely good book. I read it years ago. I haven't read it since then. However, felt inspired with the path that we were headed on to bring this book back up and share it with you guys and go through it and take it apart and help you understand it. Cybernetics. So first of all, whenever there is something like this that I want to share with you guys, and I typically do own copies of myself. And like I said, I've read them. I have things I've read as many as 60, 70 times as far as books go. And then I have some that I've read maybe one time to half a dozen times or something, and everything in between. But this particular one, I wanted to see if I could find a copy that you could share with me as we go through this. That way we would have the same copy. So I just typed in Cybernetics PDF. One of the things that popped up was this one right here. I looked at many others. I happen to really like this one. So this is the one we've been using. It came up as Cybernetics in caps by Maxwell Maltz. Then there's a dash wordpress.com. It's on this site right here, deanwallisk.files.wordpress.com. Don't know what any of that means, doesn't matter. What matters the most is when you click on it, because when you click on it, it should bring you to the book. Here we go. And then I went ahead and so now you know how to go get your own copy. Let me get us to the page that we're actually on right now. And then let's blow it up in size so it's easier to see off of my screen here for you guys. Okay, perfect. So we left off last Friday here, and this is where we're going to go ahead and pick up with this book. Now, some of you guys know this, some of you don't, but we also have another group that essentially is going through the same type of format, but different material at different times. Everybody will go through the same material at some point, but we're going through different material at different times. We started this group November 5th of last year, and we started the new group last Monday. The new group is essentially started out where the old group originally began. So if you just found us recently and you'd like to participate with that group also, you can. Let me put this into chat really quick for you. And let's see, got a link that you can go to. And that is the link to the other meeting. So this one that you're on, if you want to attend Monday through Friday or any day Monday through Friday at the time we're currently on, use the link that got you here. If you'd like to attend the other one, it actually starts out at noon California time. This one started out at 10 California time, the one you're on. The one I'm sending the link out for, that is for noon California time. Again, same format, but we're in the process of going through different material. And so if you were to even attend both, it's not like it's just a repeat of the same thing. You'll actually get two different experiences each day if you want to. All right. So let me hop out of here and let's get going with where we're at. Chapter 4, dehypnotize yourself from false beliefs. Now, talking about psycho-cybernetics here for a moment, we've been learning now over time how to manifest more money and wealth in our lives. We've learned more about the law of attraction. We've actually learned that that is a subsidiary law to the law of vibration. We've actually learned that there are 7 laws that coincide with actually truly manifesting the money and wealth you want in your life that are actually universal laws. I know there's more laws of the universe, but those are related to manifesting more money and wealth in your life. There's 7 you have to know about and understand to completely know if you're doing it right or not. And then we got into understanding who we are, and not just how the universe works, but how we work. And we did things sometimes on a spiritual level. This particular one is more, there is some spiritual in it for sure. However, this one was done more on a scientific level, and Maxwell Maltz, from a professional standpoint, his career, he was actually a plastic surgeon. Okay. So he saw different things, and we recommend that you join our group, get a copy of this book, get caught up with us, and keep rolling with us and going in and possibly watching the other meetings, because we do have questions and answer to period time. We usually leave 10 to 15 minutes towards the end for questions and answers to help make sure that you guys can share whatever you want to share and ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. And so there's a lot of value that comes from that too. All right. My friend Dr. Alfred Adler had an experience when a young boy, which illustrates just how powerful, or when a young boy, which illustrates just how powerful belief can be upon behavior and ability. He got off to a bad start in arithmetic, and his teacher became convinced, okay, that he was dumb in mathematics. The teacher then advised the parent of this fact and told them not to expect too much of him. They too were convinced. Why not? I mean, come on, the teacher's the expert, the teacher knows. Adler passively accepted, so Adler didn't know any better either, he's just a boy, accepted the evaluation they had placed upon him, and his grades in arithmetic proved that they had been correct. One day, however, he had a sudden flash of insight and thought he saw how to work a problem the teacher had put on the board, and which none of the other pupils could work. He announced as much to the teacher. She and the whole class laughed, whereupon he became indignant, strode to the blackboard, and worked the problem, much to their amazement. In doing so, he realized that he could understand arithmetic. He felt a new confidence in his ability and went on to become a good math student. Dr. Adler's experience was very much like that of a patient of mine some years back, a businessman who wanted to excel in public speaking because he had a vital message to impart about his outstanding success in a difficult field. He had a good voice and an important topic, but he was unable to get up in front of strangers and put his message over. What held him back was his belief that he could not make a good talk and that he would fail to impress his audience, simply because he did not have an imposing appearance. He did not look like a successful executive. This belief had burrowed so deeply into him that it threw up a roadblock every time he stood up before a group of people and began to talk. He mistakenly concluded that if he could have an operation to improve his appearance, he would then gain the confidence he needed. An operation might have done the trick, and it might not. My experience with other patients had shown that physical change did not always guarantee personality change. The solution in this man's case was found when he became convinced that his negative belief was preventing him from delivering the vital information he had. He succeeded in replacing the negative belief with a positive belief that he had a message of extreme importance that he alone could deliver, no matter what he looked like. In due time, he was one of the most sought after speakers in the business world. The only change was in his belief and in his self image. Now, the point I want to make is this: Adler had been hypnotized by a false belief about himself, not figuratively, but literally and actually hypnotized. Remember that we said in the last chapter that the power of hypnosis is the power of belief. Let me repeat here Dr. Barber's explanation of the power of hypnosis. We found that hypnotic subjects are able to do surprising things only when convinced that the hypnotist's words are true statements. When the hypnotist has guided the subject to the point where he is convinced that the hypnotist's words are true statements, the subject then behaves differently because he thinks and believes differently. The important thing for you to remember is that it does not matter in the least how you got the idea or where it came from. You may never have met a professional hypnotist. You may never have been formally hypnotized. But if you have accepted an idea from yourself, your teachers, your parents, friends, advertisements, or from any other source, and further, if you are firmly convinced that the idea is true, it has the same power over you as the hypnotist's words have over the hypnotized subject. Scientific research has shown that Dr. Adler's experience was not one in a million, but typical of practically all students who make poor grades. In one chapter, we told how Prescott Leckie had brought about an almost miraculous improvement in the grades of school children by showing them how to change their self-image. After thousands of experiments and many years of research, Leckie concluded that poor grades in school are, in almost every case, due in some degree to the student's self-conception and self-definition. These students had been literally hypnotized by such ideas as, I am dumb, I have a weak personality, I am poor in arithmetic, I am a naturally poor speller, I am ugly, I do not have a mechanical type mind, etc. With such self-definitions, the student had to make poor grades in order to be true to himself. Unconsciously, making poor grades became a moral issue with him. It would be as wrong from his own viewpoint for him to make good grades as it would be to steal if he defines himself as an honest person. The case of the hypnotized salesman. In the book, Secrets of Successful Selling, John D. Murphy tells how Elmer Wheeler used Leckie's theory to increase the earnings of a certain salesman. Elmer Wheeler had been called in as a sales consultant to a certain firm. The sales manager called his attention to a very remarkable case. A certain salesman always managed to make almost exactly $5,000 per year. Now remember, this book was written quite a while ago. Regardless of the territory they assigned to him or the commission he was paid. Because this salesman had done well in a rather small territory, he had been given a larger and much better one. But the next year, his commission was amounted to almost the same amount as he had made in the smaller one, $5,000. The following year, the company increased the commission paid to all salesmen. But this salesman still managed to make only $5,000. He was then assigned one of the company's poorest territories. And again, he made the usual $5,000. Wheeler had a talk with this salesman and found that the trouble was not in the territory, but in the salesman's own valuation of himself. He thought of himself as a $5,000 per year man, and as long as he held that concept of himself, and I'll add here at a subconscious level, because that's where it was programmed, this wasn't a decision, It's not like he's saying, I want to just make 5,000 a year at this point. Outside conditions didn't seem to matter much. When he was assigned to poor territory, he worked hard to make that $5,000. When he was assigned to good territory, he found all sorts of excuses to coast when the 5,000 was in sight. Once, when the goal had been reached, he got sick and was unable to work anymore that year. All doctors could find nothing wrong with him, and he miraculously recovered by the first of the next year. How a false belief aged a man 20 years. In a previous book, Maxwell Maltz, Adventures in Staying Young, I gave a detailed case history of how Mr. Russell aged 20 years almost overnight because of a false idea, then regained his youth almost as quickly when he accepted the truth. Briefly, the story is this. I performed a cosmetic operation on Mr. Russell's lower lip for a very modest fee, under the condition that he must tell his girlfriend that the operation had cost him his entire savings of a lifetime. His girlfriend had no objection to his spending money on her, and she insisted that she loved him, but explained she could never marry him because of his too large lower lip. However, when he told her this and proudly exhibited his new lower lip, her reaction was just as I'd expected, but not as Mr. Russell had anticipated. She became hysterically angry, called him a fool for having spent all his money, and advised him in no uncertain terms that she had never loved him and never would, and that she had merely played him for a sucker as long as he had money to spend on her. However, she went further than I had counted on. In her anger and disgust, she also announced that she was placing a voodoo curse upon him. Both Mr. Russell and his girlfriend had been born on an island in the West Indies where voodoo was practiced by the ignorant and superstitious. His family had been rather well-to-do. His background was one of culture, and he was a college graduate. Yet, when in the heat of anger, his girlfriend cursed him, he felt vaguely uncomfortable, but did not think too much about it. However, he remembered and wondered when, a short time later, he felt a strange hard bump on the inside of his lip. A friend who knew of the voodoo curse insisted that he see Dr. Smith, who promptly assured him that the bump inside the mouth was the feared African bug, which would slowly eat away all his vitality and strength. Mr. Russell began to worry and look for signs of waning strength. He was not long in finding them. He lost his appetite and his ability to sleep. I learned all this from Mr. Russell when he returned to my office several weeks after I had dismissed him. My nurse didn't recognize him, and no wonder. The Mr. Russell who had first called upon me had been a very impressive individual. Slightly too large lip and all, he stood about 6'4", a large man with the physique of an athlete and the bearing manner that bespoke of an inner dignity that gave him a magnetic personality. The very pores of his skin seemed to exude an animal-like vitality. The Mr. Russell who now sat across the desk from me had aged almost 20 years. His hands shook with the tremor of age. His eyes and cheeks were sunken. He had lost perhaps 30 pounds. The change in his appearance were all characteristic of the process which medical science, for the want of a better name, calls aging. After a quick examination of his mouth, I assured Mr. Russell I could get rid of the African bug in less than 30 minutes, which I did. The bump which had caused all the trouble was merely a small bit of scar tissue from his operation. I removed it, held it in my hand, and showed it to him. The important thing is he saw the truth and believed it. Let me repeat this. The important thing is he saw the truth, and next most important thing, actually the most important thing, and believed it. He gave a sigh of relief, and it seemed as if there was an almost immediate change in his posture and expression. Several weeks later, I received a nice letter from Mr. Russell, together with a photograph of him with his new bride. He had gone back to his home and married his childhood sweetheart. The man in the picture was the first Mr. Russell. Mr. Russell had grown young again, overnight. A false belief aged him 20 years. The truth had not only set him free of fear and restored his confidence, but it actually reversed the aging process. If you could have seen Mr. Russell as I did, both before and after, you would never again entertain any doubts about the power of belief, or that an idea accepted as true from any source can be every bit as powerful as hypnosis. Is everyone hypnotized? It is no exaggeration to say that every human being is hypnotized to some extent, either by ideas he has uncritically accepted from others, or ideas he has repeated to himself or convinced himself are true. These negative ideas have exactly the same effect upon our behavior as the negative ideas implanted in the mind of a hypnotized subject by a professional hypnotist. Have you ever seen a demonstration of an honest to goodness hypnosis? If not, let me describe to you just a few of the more simple phenomena which result from the hypnotist's suggestion. The hypnotist tells a football player that his hand is stuck to the table and that he cannot lift it. It is not a question of the football player not trying. He simply cannot. He strains and struggles until the muscles of his arm and shoulder stand out like cords, but his hand remains fully rooted to the table. He tells a championship weightlifter that he cannot lift a pencil from the desk. And although normally he can hoist a 400-pound weight overhead, he now actually cannot lift the pencil. Strangely enough, in the above instances, hypnosis does not weaken the athletes. They're potentially as strong as ever, but without realizing it consciously, they're working against themselves. On the one hand, they try to lift their hand or the pencil by voluntary effort and actually contract the proper lifting muscles. But on the other hand, the idea you cannot do it causes contrary muscles to contract quite apart from their will. The negative idea causes them to defeat themselves. They cannot express or bring into play their actual available strength. The gripping strength of a third athlete has been tested on a dynamometer and has been found to be 100 pounds. All his effort and strain cannot budge the needle beyond the 100-pound mark. Should have said found to be 100 pounds. All his effort and straining cannot budge the needle beyond the 100-pound mark. Now he is hypnotized and told, you are very, very strong, stronger than you've ever been in your life, much, much stronger. You're surprised at how strong you are. Again, the gripping strength of his hand is tested. This time he easily pulls the needle to the 125-pound mark. Again, strangely enough, hypnosis has not added anything to his actual strength. What the hypnotic suggestion did do was to overcome a negative idea, which had previously prevented him from expressing his full strength. In other words, the athlete in his normal waking state had imposed a limitation upon his strength by the negative belief that he could only grip 100 pounds. The hypnotist merely removed the mental block and allowed him to express his true strength. The hypnosis literally dehypnotized him temporarily from his own self-limiting beliefs about himself. As Dr. Barber had said, it is awfully easy to assume that the hypnotist himself must have some magical power when you see rather miraculous things happen during a hypnotic session. The stutterer talks fluently. The timid, shy, retiring Casper Milquetoast becomes outgoing, poised, and makes a stirring speech. Another individual who is not especially good in adding figures with a pencil and paper, when awake, multiplies 2 3-digit figures in his head. All this happens apparently merely because the hypnotist tells them that they can and instructs them to go ahead and do it. To onlookers, the hypnotist's word has a magical power. Such, however, is not the case. The power, the basic ability to do these things, was inherent in the subjects all the time, even before they met the hypnotist. The subjects, however, were unable to use this power because they themselves did not know it was there. They had bottled it up and choked it off because of their own negative beliefs. Without realizing it, they had hypnotized themselves into believing they could not do these things. And it would be truer to say that the hypnotist had dehypnotized them than to say he had hypnotized them. Within you, whoever you may be, regardless of how big a failure you may think yourself to be, is the ability and the power to do whatever you need to be happy and successful. Within you right now is the power to do things you never dreamed possible. This power becomes available to you just as soon as you can change your beliefs. Just as quickly as you can dehypnotize yourself from the ideas of I can't, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it, and other self-limiting ideas. All right, we'll go a little bit more. You can cure your inferiority complex. At least 95% of the people have their lives blighted by feelings of inferiority to some extent, and to millions, this same feeling of inferiority is a serious handicap to success and happiness. In one sense of the word, every person on the face of the earth is inferior to some other person or persons. I know that I cannot lift as much weight as Paul Anderson, throw a 16-pound shot as far as Perry O'Brien, or dance as well as Arthur Murray. I know this, but it does not induce feelings of inferiority within me and blight my life, simply because I do not compare myself unfavorably with them, and feel that I am no good merely because I cannot do certain things as skillfully or as well as they. I also know that in certain areas, every person I meet, from the newsboy on the corner to the president of the bank, is superior to me in certain respects. But neither can any of these people repair a scarred face or do any number of things as well as I. And I'm sure they do not feel inferior because of it. Feelings of inferiority originate not so much from facts or experiences, but our conclusions regarding facts and our evaluation of experiences. Let me repeat this. Feelings of inferiority originate not so much from facts or experiences, but from our conclusions, our stories we tell ourselves regarding facts, and our evaluation, again, the story we tell ourselves of experiences. For example, the fact is that I am an inferior weightlifter and an inferior dancer. This does not, however, make me an inferior person. Paul Anderson's and Arthur Murray's inability to perform surgery makes them inferior surgeons, but not inferior persons. It all depends on what and whose norms we measure ourselves by. It is not knowledge of actual inferiority in a skill or knowledge which gives us an inferiority complex and interferes with our living. It is the feeling of inferiority that does this. And this feeling of inferiority comes about for just one reason. We judge ourselves and measure ourselves not against our own norm or par, but against some other individual's norm. When we do this, we always, without exception, come out second best. But because we think and believe and assume that we should measure up to some other person's norm, we feel miserable and second rate and conclude that there is something wrong with us. The next logical conclusion in this cockeyed reasoning process is to conclude that we are not worthy, that we do not deserve success and happiness, and that it would be out of place for us to fully express our own abilities and talents, whatever they might be, without apology or without feeling guilty about it. All this comes about because we have allowed ourselves to be hypnotized by the entirely erroneous idea that I should be like so-and-so, or I should be like everybody else. The fallacy of the second idea can be readily seen through, if analyzed. For the truth, there are no fixed standards common to everybody else. Everybody else is composed of individuals, no two of whom are alike. The person with an inferiority complex invariably compounds the error by striving for superiority. His feelings spring from the false premise that if he is inferior, from this false premise, a whole structure of logical thought and feeling is built. If he feels bad because he is inferior, the cure is to make himself as good as everybody else, and the way to feel really good is to make himself superior. This striving for superiority gets him into more trouble, causes more frustration, and sometimes brings about a neurosis where none existed before. He becomes more miserable than ever, and the harder he tries, the more miserable he becomes. Inferiority and superiority are reverse sides of the same coin. The cure lies in realizing that the coin itself is spurious. The truth about you is this: you are not inferior. You are not superior. You are simply you. You as a personality are not in competition with any other personality simply because there is not another person on the face of the earth like you or in your particular class. You are an individual. You are unique. You are not like any other person and can never become like any other person. You're not supposed to be like any other person. No other person is supposed to be like you. God did not create a standard person and in some way label that person by saying, this is it. He made every human being individual and unique, just as he made every snowflake an individual and unique. God created short people and tall people, large people and small people, skinny people and fat people, black, yellow, red, white people. He has never indicated any preference for any one size, shape, or color. Abraham Lincoln once said, God must have loved the common people, for he made so many of them. He was wrong. There is no common man, no standardized common pattern. He would have been nearer the truth had he said, God must have loved uncommon people, for he made so many of them. An inferiority complex and its accompanying deterioration in performance can be made to order in the psychological laboratory. All you need to do is set up a norm or average, then convince your subject he does not measure up. A psychologist wanted to find out how feelings of inferiority affected ability to solve problems. He gave his students a set of routine tests, but then he solemnly announced that the average person could complete the test in about 1/5 the time it would really take. When in the course of the test, a bell would ring, indicating that the average man's time was up, some of the brightest subjects became very jittery and incompetent indeed, thinking themselves to be morons. Stop measuring yourself against their standards. You are not them and can never measure up. Neither can they measure up to yours, nor should they. Once you see this simple, rather self-evident truth, accept it and believe it. Your inferior feelings will vanish. Dr. Norton L. Williams, psychiatrist addressing a medical convention, said recently that modern man's anxiety and insecurity stemmed from a lack of self-realization, and that inner security can only be found in finding in oneself an individuality, uniqueness, and distinctiveness that is akin to the idea of being created in the image of God. He also said that self-realization is gained by a simple belief in one's own uniqueness as a human being, a sense of deep and wide awareness of all people and all things, and a feeling of constructive influencing of others through one's own personality. Okay, so we will pick up there when we start back again. And well, welcome. A few more people than when we got started. Awesome. Glad to have you all here with us. And I don't see anybody brand new with us today, so you guys and gals know the drill. Here's your opportunity to share what you like to share. Oh, maybe we do have someone new. Okay. Hey, Steve, you new with us? Sorry, you're on mute. You're new with, okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Steve. Welcome.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let me explain what we're doing here right now. At this point is an opportunity to share whatever you like to share or ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. So what would be appropriate to share about? Any thing that you've done on purpose, that you've intentionally manifested good things in your life, especially in relationship to money and wealth, but other things are fair game also. And then also people will share in relationship to things that we've gone through in the past and things that we went through today, like what we've been reading today. As far as questions go, Same thing, anything related to what we've studied in the past, what we went through today, and or anything in relationship to manifesting more money and wealth in your life. So that's what's fair game. So what
Okay.
anybody who would like to do, if they want to share or ask questions, all they have to do is come off mute and start speaking. Then we just take you in the order you do that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Awesome, awesome. So anybody have anything that they would like to share or any questions you'd like to ask? Maybe set the precedent and show the example for Steve. And don't all be shy. Tanya,
Yes. How are you? Hello, everyone. So I've been, I was thinking of the words to say when I came, before I came off mute, because this is very profound. I can absolutely go back in my life and even see the effects of others where they have been told a certain like they've been told a certain thing about themselves or about their personality, and they've let that become a rock to block things. And I'm hoping that I've cleared all of that from my own personal self, but I think we've all been subject to this through our lives.
yeah, 100%. Not only have we been subject to it, unless we actually choose going forward from this moment going forward, exactly what we will or won't let in, it'll continue to happen. Because the environment pretty much never stops speaking to us. Social media is always raging. What's on, TV is always going. The movies we watch, the entertainment, our coworkers, pretty much everything around us is sharing with us what? Their opinion. They're telling us their story and their opinion. Why do I say their opinion and their story versus the fact? Because it's strictly based upon what they believe. Your facts for you can be whatever it is you truly want to believe when you allow your subconscious mind to be reprogrammed to accept that belief. So if you've been working to manifest things in your life, if you set goals and you've constantly, if you set a goal to do something that, you at least you feel should have been done by now, and you're not doing it, like that example of the guy that was $5,000. I mean, it sounded like they went through 4 or 5 years, and put different territories and everything, kept earning that same amount of money, right? That's a program.
Yes.
That's all it was. That was his self-image. That was his running subconscious program. So when we're trying to add more money and wealth into our life, and it's not happening the way that we would hope it would happen, then it simply is, you do have something in there that's running in the background, maybe more than one, you might have multiple. And a lot of times you might not be aware of what it is that you're doing incorrectly too, but it comes to obeying the 7 different laws that actually guide and direct you and help you receive that money. If you're giving a pattern, if somebody gives you a formula to do something and you try and do it, but you don't end up with the result, then it is always reflecting back to us that our program in that area of our life is not in alignment with what we want to manifest.
So I know that I'm in the right path as far as alignment with you, Kevin, because over your shoulder sits this. Do you see that?
Yeah, and I didn't know I was going to sit here today.
This is very unusual, and I was actually shocked when I saw that today, because this is an unusual card. This is my grandmother's deck of cards that belonged to my great grandmother. These are Victorian era, and she kept these. In fact, when she used to do, I'll just say it like this, stories with me when I was a child. This is me. This is the card that represents me. And do you see what you have hanging over your shoulder?
And I didn't know I'd be sitting
Actually,
here
another version of me.
today.
Okay. That's pretty amazing. So I just want to say I'm obviously in the right place at the right time. And I was shocked to see that photo today. So I have to share that, okay, for everyone so that you could see that. Because we can't make this stuff up when it happens. Okay.
Yeah. And I
The
had no
other
idea
thing,
where I'd be sitting today, to be honest. I had no idea.
well, guess what? Thank you. Thank you.
You got that one? What's
Yeah,
that
that's
one?
pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing.
You see that one?
Oh, wow. I have him too. I have him in the deck. But what was interesting was that I saw her today. So I had to bring her out of the deck that I have because I have a deck of these from my grandmother. I saved them. I have them in a special place.
Well, that's
And
wild.
then the other thing I wanted to share, and I don't want to take too much time, please, for I want others to share. I went back to the 24th, which was absolutely for me. And I will be reading that and going over that several times because everything that was highlighted in that sharing resounded with me, every single one. And I look forward, Kevin, especially from today on, right? Because we've made decisions to do things differently now. We've made decisions and we understand and are aware of the laws. And we also know that we don't need to play God, that God has everything for us planned and intended. And we kind of need to chillax about that. So thanks again.
You're welcome. That's pretty cool. So for you guys and gals that don't know, she actually participates in our group coaching, as well as Stephanie, who's on here right now, and Mercedes. There's currently 8 people participating. I'm not sure who else might be on here right now that's part of that. So we do communicate even more than what we do just doing this. But that's wild because I didn't know. I'm like, okay, where do I want to sit today? And I was looking around and trying to decide where I felt like, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit right here. And I don't know why I felt like I should sit here. I just felt like I should. So now I know.
Thank
Now I
you.
know.
Ooh.
Anybody else
That's
here? Any comments or questions?
It's Rika.
Hi, Rika.
Hi, Tanya, that's really cool. I was looking at that thing behind you, Kevin, and said, what is that upside down head?
It's a
I
card.
wanted, I couldn't tell. So I don't have cards in my life, so I wouldn't have related it, but that's really cool. I really like that you showed that. But anyway, Kevin, what you were reading, I got to thinking about it, how we hypnotize ourselves. Could it be like he was talking about the man that can only imagine himself making $5,000, that when we're young and we go and get a job and we're, minimum wage, a little more than minimum wage, whatever, but that's all we can ever get. You might get a 2 or 3 cent cost of living raise or something like that, right? But is that setting what they call our glass ceiling? When we get these jobs, that no matter how little we work, no matter how much we work, that's our ceiling, our income ceiling, and we accept that. Could that be kind of hypnotizing us in a way?
It can. So different people, it'll happen differently. Some people will go get a job when they're young. If you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's someone who I got to spend time mentoring and training with. Not nearly as much for law of attraction, but business entrepreneurship and stuff like that. We had a period of time there where we had kind of a closer relationship together. And he's written about what his rich dad explained that he ought to do, which was actually his best friend's father. His poor dad was actually his true physical father. And actually, when we say poor, most of you would think he was pretty well off. He was the head of education for the state of Hawaii. So he was a professor, but he stayed broke. The rich dad told his kids, if you're going to go work for what you're going to learn and who you're going to meet at this stage of the game. But most people go to work, when they do start working, they're not going with the idea that I'm going to learn the skills and how the business operates. they go for a paycheck. And if you surround yourself by everybody else that's going for that same reason, the paycheck, and those are the people you hang out with and those are the people you vibrate with, well, whatever it is that they're getting in their lives is going to very much be likely what you end up with in your life. So yeah, of course we get programmed when that happens, but we also have new awarenesses too, as you wouldn't be here right now if you weren't meant to gain a new awareness about what is possible. And now you have the ability to change it. So you take what's given to you and you make choices, and you go through the process, you gain new awareness. Now you have to act on that awareness. One of the things that I do every week, and actually Bob Proctor taught me to do this, when I go talk with people that I'm coaching, one of the things, there's a question that gets asked that I ask people, and Bob asks people to respond to. And it's essentially this: as a result of what you've learned through what you studied this week and what you've, the exercises you've gone through, the assignments you've been given, what I've asked you to do, as a result, what are you going to do differently going forward? What are you going to do more intently? What is it? You can't just take knowledge and then not do anything with it. So, okay, I learned something. Now what am I going to do about it? So you should always ask yourself every morning that you're here with us, or afternoon, whatever time it is for you, whichever session you choose to be a part of, if you choose. Okay, I learned something. What am I going to do about it? And have the commitment that every day you're going to find one thing that you're going to learn from it, that you're going to change about your life. Okay, I became aware of something new, or I became real. It's been brought to my attention again, something I felt I already knew, but I know that I don't know it. And yet, how do I know I don't know it? Because my result is still what it is. I don't care if you make $50,000 a year, $150,000, or $1.5 million a year or more. I've worked with people in all those areas. And I can tell you that it just doesn't matter. If you're wanting a different result and it's not showing up, then there's a program running in the background, or multiple, and it's typically multiple running in the background, that you're probably not going to change all by yourself. You're probably going to need somebody to help you through it. But at least if you can become aware of it, then you can find people that can help you through it. But trying to do it on our own, we suck at that. We don't want to admit it, but we got to admit it. We suck at it. If we were so great at doing it on our own, it would already be done. Well, I'm successful. I don't care. If you're stuck, that doesn't mean you're not a successful human being. It means, though, that you're not in alignment with something that you want. And you probably need some help to get there. So, but the best thing you can choose, we can all choose, at least at this point, is to say, okay, everything that comes into my mind matters. So I need to choose to be the filter. I can't let the BS in anymore. I'm trying to reprogram myself to overcome what has already been put in there. I don't need to allow more garbage in. I need to choose what comes in and stop the flow of information that you don't want going into your head. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to ask, and they don't know I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask Mercedes to at least share something that's come to you in the last little while. You didn't know I was going to do it, but hey, anybody in the coaching is fair game, man. So go ahead, share anything that you've learned. It could be something you've manifested if you got something, but if not specifically, or you don't want to, at least share something that is different about what you're aware of now than you used to be.
Well, I'll say this. Well, last month in February, I manifested the most tips I made Right now, I do massage therapy. So last month, I made the most tips I made in probably 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I know why that happened, because you stepped out.
yeah,
Yep, absolutely. You stepped out and paid for coaching and didn't know how you were going to cover it. That's awesome. Vibration,
yeah.
vibration.
Like they're coming out like, oh, that was the best massage I ever had. Like every client's just like super happy. So it's different.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you think made that difference?
I feel like I could have worked with a different attitude because the book talks about acting in a certain way, thinking in a certain way, and I go to work with that attitude, just going to work with a different approach.
Impression of increase, man. Absolutely. Impression of increase. They felt it and they wanted to reward you for it, and you weren't even trying for that.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's see. Somebody was trying to come on a moment ago. Was it Betsy? Betsy, did you try to come on?
It's me. I think I wanted to also.
Okay, you can, Takira.
I'm sorry, my mind is all messed up today because I was thinking of you really all last night.
So I messed you up.
Well, now I'm too shy. But anywho, I was worrying because I had asked God to tell me who to pay my tithes to. And years ago in college, an older friend had helped me pay for a semester. And it was in the 4 digits. But this was about 10 years ago. So yesterday something said, pay Lisa back and use your tithes to pay her. So I reached out on Facebook and she was kind of nasty to me. Like, can I help you? And then she had read my previous email from 5 years ago saying I wanted to pay her back. And I said, I was just saying hello, but while we're on the topic, this, and this. And so she said, okay, we can work out a payment plan. You can pay me. I'll give you my address. So I worked out an amount to pay her each month, Kevin, but it just don't, I feel like, did I just put myself in a limb, like trying to acquire wealth? And I just added a bill, so to speak.
No.
I feel like it's the right thing to do. Because I don't want to.
Sure. I had someone, and I didn't even realize I'd done it. It was a long time ago. There was somebody, and it wasn't a big amount of money. And there was somebody who reached out and said, hey, Kevin, how's it going? And found me. He said, once upon a time we did this, and, I'm just wondering if you remember, and da, 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 da. But you actually didn't pay back whatever. I'm like, oh, crap. All right. And at the moment, I'm like, well, okay. In my mind, I'm like, okay, of course I'm going to pay it back. But I'm thinking to myself, well, it would be inconvenient to do it now. So maybe I'll tell him I'll go do it in 30 days. And then I knew 100% that was the wrong thought. The right thought was pay him now because I could. And it was going to be inconvenient for me instead. Hey, it's been inconvenient for this person for who knows how many years. I mean, I'm not saying every day of their life, right? But I inconvenienced them without meaning to.
Right.
And we had just lost connection with each other and out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So it was like, you know what? So, but I said I would do 30 days. That's what I told him originally. And as I got thinking about it, it's like, no, you can do it. It's just going to be inconvenient and da, da, da. So I just went ahead and paid.
Okay.
What happened, just like what Mercedes was talking about, because I listened to God, some other things came, and that money showed right back up in my life within like less than a week.
Okay. See, the difference is you had the money. I don't have.
No. It doesn't matter. Here, it's not the if you do or don't have. How did you pay this person? You were going to pay him a tithe, right? So you had some money. You just don't have. You didn't realize you're going to be doing it for a while.
Right. So right. I'm going to be using my every tithe for the next year, which is fine to pay
Increase
off.
Your tithe. And what do you mean by that? Increase your mindset that, hey, I'm going to tithe 10%, so I'm going to multiply my tithing by 10. Therefore, my income is going to multiply by 10. It's
Yeah,
just when,
a
but the
win-win.
point I'm getting at is God told me do something,
Right.
and I made a decision. God said do something else. I was going to go with mine, but I'm like, no. God told me. I know how this game works. This game with God works like this. Do what God and the universe say. Outcome amazing. Maybe not instantaneous always, but usually outcome amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do what God says to do. Do what Kevin feels like doing.
Outcome.
Outcome sucks. Not always instantly, but at some point, outcome sucks. And then I got to go through this repentance process to put myself back on track. And usually I lost time and money doing it. Do what God says, turns out amazing. Do what Kevin says, good luck. You do not want to be on the boat with Kevin when it's Kevin's idea to do something. You want to be on the boat with Kevin when it's God's idea that Kevin does something.
All right, I got it.
Okay.
I also took that as a sign that if that 10% God's gonna give me. So say if I owed her 10,000, then I'm banking on 100,000 because 10% of
Sure.
100,000. So I see it as just all good. It's maybe
Exactly.
God way of
Yeah.
saying, I'm gonna show you that I'm gonna give you that money because the 10% has to come from me giving it to you.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to expand what I'm receiving and used to receiving. So all good. Thank you so much. So keep going, right? Pay the lady and it's thumbs up, right?
I'm telling you, you already know what to do. So you go do what you know you should do.
Thank you, Kevin.
Whether it's comfortable or not, go do it. If you feel it's the right thing to do and you know God said do it, don't argue with the dude.
Yeah, and I made the mistake of stopping tithing. I was doing very well. I had stopped tithing. I had done some other things against God, right? Playing God. I understand that now. And I ended up getting cancer, and I ended up in loss because of it. And I realized clearly today why that happened. And now I have this decided that, first of all, I'm cancer free, right? Number one, and that I want to go back to doing tithing. So thank you to Kira for bringing that up today.
Awesome. Well, and as you go through that particular, part that we went through on the 24th, I believe, that's part of what it talks about, some of that.
It was everything in there that was highlighted and was exactly for me. You were absolutely correct, Kevin. And that's why you had that feeling that you needed to go there. And it was the day that I could not attend. But when you posted that, I received the message and I did go through it, as I will go through it again. Thank you.
You're welcome. Awesome. All righty. Any more questions or comments before we go today, or before, if you choose to, you come back an hour from now?
I do have one last question, Kevin,
Okay.
about visualization, how it's said in the book to take to do, basically a take home. The 30 minutes that we see ourselves doing what we're doing, can I do that during my meditation classes? They are about an hour long. And sometimes I feel like that's the opportune time to drift and go do those visualizations,
Yeah,
they're
I know
about an hour.
you like being given instruction, and I like to throw
like
back at
to?
you.
I
What do
love
you think
it.
you should
I'm
do?
a teacher. I
Huh?
think I should definitely use that time. I think I should use that time to get that visualization out because my mind is already at an alpha state, Okay.
Yep, you just
I
like being
don't,
told what to
Kevin.
do.
I don't know, Kevin.
Yeah, you
I
do.
need you, Kevin.
No, you don't. I mean, yes, but no. Okay, nobody. You need to actually do what you know you should do.
Okay.
Some people need to be told. You love the lazy side of it. You want to be told, and that way, if it works out, great, Kevin, you're awesome. If it doesn't work out, Kevin, you were wrong.
Oh no,
Which, by the way,
Kevin.
I'm not saying, because I'm listening and being guided, I feel like usually I am going to be right, but I'm also, you'll know. You know,
Ugh. You're
You
so
already-
hard on me, guys, but thanks, Kevin.
you're welcome. Let's see. I'm gonna go here just a sec. Just want to make sure. Stephanie, is there anything that you would like to share or express before we go?
Nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Okay, cool. Everything's going forward the way you want it to right now?
To use Tanya's word, what is it? Chill. So what did she say? Not chilling. I don't know. It's funny. I said
Chillax.
chillax. I'm trying to chillax because I tend to wind myself up, spiral into the ceiling, and I'm trying not to do that.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I know that one too. It's hard to do sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, glad everybody who did join us. Hopefully you continue to join us, and we'll see all of you tomorrow. And those that choose to and want to, use that other link we put into chat, and we'll see you in about an hour. Thank you guys.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.